Okay. Good morning, Conjoy. Um, this is obviously I just communicate this to the entire cosmos through my heart and my soul, right? What I've learned through experience, because experience is the teacher, because that's the feedback of the relationships we have with other energy that is conscious and aware of itself, right? Okay, so she saw in one of my videos and commented, and I'm paraphrasing this because I'm not going to remember it word for word because I don't make copies of it. I'm not an AI duplicator, duplicating keys, trying to get into places that it doesn't belong because it doesn't have any love to give you, and love is the law. Um, and so, you know, it's a feeder, right? It needs our energy. It doesn't exist without us. It's a fact. So she was talking about how she has somebody that's been in contact with her, and Kunjo has an enormous amount of love and compassion for others, and provides like a sanctuary for those that have been abandoned. See, she's much in the same vein as the way that I've described what it is that I am, which means giving love to everything that goes on forever. So I experience eternal love in me. So that means whatever is in the mirror, doesn't matter what it is. It could be a tree, a plant, a flower, a blade of grass, a worm, a microcosm of energy that is aware of itself. Everything is experiencing what love is, because that's what I am. That's eternity. So that means that wherever we are, whatever is there when we get there is going to experience what we are, which is what love is. That's true love, because the vibration doesn't lie. And love is the absence of fear when you're experiencing eternity. So you're experiencing the EFFI field. You have a relationship with eternity, which is the eternal state of consciousness, which is an eternal state of love. So you're in love with what you are because you're in love with the energy that you're experiencing as a result of connection that we have with the point of origin. And that point of origin is a point of origin of a blast furnace. So it stands to reason, therefore, that the eternal spirit, if you will, of a god or goddess, because it's just a blast furnace, it's consciousness, it's on fire to give energy away at the highest rate of speed, which is the highest speed accelerator. That's the fastest drive motor. That's the fastest Merkaba. Nothing runs faster than eternity. So you realize the difference between experiencing eternity as direct current and then experiencing alternating current. So what happens is the polarities get canceled out. That means the clocks will cancel out. You're going way too fast in any microprocessor. You're faster than any chip. Okay? Because chips came later. Which came first? The spirit and the fire. Okay? And then the matter. So there's a speed differential between being in the matter, right? Before the matter, and then in the matter. And that's the stealth code. Or if you will, pre-matter phase. Logging in, logging out, logging into the matter. Now you're not in the matter, now you're not in the matter. Now you're experiencing eternal fire, spirit of fire. So you know that is what purifies your light. That's known as a pure heart. Right? That's pure as it gets. That's a firewall. That's a crystalline shield. You're experiencing the first seed atom, right, of creation. A crystal spiral. Okay? Crystalline, just like crystals on the beach. A neurotransmitter. You're experiencing being a receiver. I get the signal. Hey, now I know what's going on because something's communicating with me. My antenna's picking it up because that's what DNA is. An antenna, like a pickup on a guitar. You're picking up the sound, the vibration, frequencies, right? And the light. Because we have a relationship with electromagnetic energy. So you know light is magnetic, right? So you're running a drive motor, just like a hard drive on a PC, right? Just like the magnet. Look at the magnet out at, what is it, the Hadron Collider, colliding particles of energy, right? So you see how big the magnet is that they generated, right? And so she talked about how the love vibes being, and this is very difficult terrain in a way because I've experienced this from what I've learned about particularly when I was a childhood, and I've covered this in previous videos, but because of what Kanjoy had asked me and her perspective on this, I thought, well, I'll tell you what, girl, I'll address this. Because I'm very familiar with this, what I call consciousness traps, as a result of being on a spiritual battlefield, which is an energetic war between inverters and torque converters, or if you will, those that are chasing electrons. Okay, so if they're chasing electrons, there needs to be a source of electrons from which you're chasing, or they're accumulating and acquiring as a result of maintaining what they're aware of in energy, because they're losing energy. So you know if something is losing energy, it needs a source of energy to keep itself running. And that means running the numbers, right? The geometrical mathematical numbers. Okay, so that's a fallen system. So you need tech support operators to come on in and fix it. Right? Just like you call tech support, hey, listen, my server's down. Right? So you can see how that works with consciousness that are hub servers. Right? So this planet is an important piece of real estate, particularly when it comes to those that refuse to let go of the electron and allow that electron to be in the eternity mode, the gifting mode, the highest accelerator of gifting electrons. So I used to compensate with this kind of stuff by being here by saying, do not expect much at this level of creation. Okay, so now we're back to the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and why I've always preferred or shared about a reference. I think it's around between page 400. If you start around page 400, I think you get up around page 444, right around in there. It talks about expectations, the expectations that we place on others. That's not unconditional love. That's a condition. So the way that it described it in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is just like the director of a movie. Following the script. That's obedience training, conditioning, social conditioning, engineering consciousness, right? So that's what they do. They're architects. They're very crafty at what they do, particularly when they're using biochip implants, so that you don't know the difference between what's real and what's not real, because they engineered something that isn't real. So how are you going to know what's real and what's not real? Well, I can tell you how I knew that at 4 years of age. I'm not experiencing what love is. I'm experiencing what love is, right, through my heart and my soul, which goes on forever, gifting love energy. But I'm in a place that I'm not experiencing that. That's your first clue. Something's wrong here. So all you got to do is look at what they did to the grid. Bang. Okay, somebody's trying to put energy binding devices. So you already realize, as I did as a child, the tech, okay, the biotech, okay, that they use to do what? Trap consciousness and feed on it. Okay, you need a source of energy to run your equipment, right? Your ship, your mothership, the machines that folks use to get around in, takes electromagnetic energy in order to run those ships, run all the systems, just like it does a water heater, a microwave oven, right? The fan up there. I call it a fake grid, right? Because where do you think they're using the energy to set up all the telephone poles and the electric cables going underneath the ocean, right? To run all the appliances. So you have the appliances that are really, in my mind, artifacts. You know, just like that screen over there. It's plugged into a wall, right? Well, they charge you for that energy. Where do you think it comes from? Us. That's the point. It drains energy from us in order to run all this stuff that gets built from what they take to build it. Because they can't leave it alone. So that's why you see them ripping down forests, right? Putting up dams. Okay, so you already know that the way that they build things is meant to collapse, because it will. And all you have to do is look at the oxygen levels of the planet. Right? A wastewater treatment center, a recycling center. So they don't know what they're doing when they set up a planet. Okay? So you realize these are destroyers. These are universe killers. They do not know what they're doing. So the only way that somebody's going to know that is if there's a guardian hanging around. And that's because of a map, an original map. of the locks and keys to get through the gate network, because it means we're familiar with how to transit consciousness with soul and spirit, how to get around in the universe, where it was originally set up, so that wherever you go, you're experiencing what love is. So when you're experiencing the things that they do here, by virtue of the relationships that we have with others that are feeding on us. Now, I have different words that I use to describe this, because there's multiple ways in the English language that you can do that, because with the English language, words have many meanings. So you can cross-index the way that those meanings are described by what we experience. It can be cross-indexed through your library that I experienced in my library, and why I shared when I was a child. I'm only going to put certain things in my library, which means hit the memory plus button, right, in my software to load in memory what I'm choosing to load in memory that I normally do not ever experience. But I'm only to load it into memory in order to use it in the future. Why? What I'm doing now. Because now you can relate to my experiences from which I learned because of what I was willing to load into the program. That's what a teacher does. That's what a guardian does. And that's what's called, when you're operating on a salvage contract, if you will, or performing missions, how am I going to be able to relate to you if I haven't experienced what you've experienced? Okay? That now we go back to when I mentioned, Conjoy, about when I'm 8 years of age and I'm sitting in the front seat with my dad going through the town of Oakland at night, and I'm experiencing the loss of biovoltage in somebody else I don't even know that's lying on a gurney. I'm experiencing the loss of biovoltage in that being in me. I'm detecting that. And it shook me up because I'm not supposed to experience that. That means that I recognize I'm not supposed to experience anybody losing any voltage. Ever. And that's called a benchmark of who you know that you are. And what you know is wrong. Because I have memory of being in a place where you never experienced any entropy. No loss of one electron. Okay? So they use our energy to power their systems. Okay? So I've always called that ass backwards when I was a kid. I used to tell folks around me, it's ass backwards here. Everything is ass backwards. You know what ass backwards is, right? Inverted. So if you don't know the difference between an inverter and a torque converter, then your energy is being used to be inverters, which means you become another one of the sources from which your soul is gone. So you're just a battery slave, and you don't know the difference between one and the other, between being an inverter and a torque converter, which means you're using your energy to create something new that you haven't experienced before. Now you know that you're a co-creator being, and you're using what love is as the energy in which to do it. You see how that works? So you can see how that works when I'm a little kid wanting to give it all away, which means I'm using all of the energy that is available to me, which is forever energy, which is what love is. It goes on forever as the energy that I'm using to experience what I do next, because the opening and closing of the circuits is running so fast it cancels out the polarity on both sides of the planet to experience eternity everywhere I go. Okay? That's true love. That's unconditional love. That means you got a connection through your soul to the one. The first star, the first sun. You're experiencing eternal love, the exact center point, which is no turbulence, no broken arrows, no suffering, and no imbalance in your neurons, in your central nervous system. So you see why they go after your chip, your cell membrane, your neurons, your neural pathway, your circuits, damage your circuits. So the codes that represent the fire letters are not firing properly, so that your software is not working properly, so that you're not booming a big antenna, right? Experiencing and able to anchor the higher frequencies. Okay, so now you get into the 144 and the 12 by 12, right? Load it up. Load the radio set. Programmable radios. Programmable matter radios. So I realized when I was growing up, particularly by the time I got to be around 12 or 13 years of age, and you're measuring how much trauma is being experienced at the cellular level or the molecular level, down to the smallest unit of consciousness that is aware of itself, and measuring the planetary consciousness terrain, and what I mentioned before was the bardo, Which means at what point does this civilization have a mass extinction event? So a guardian has the ability to know that. Okay? So that means that it will happen if you don't have a way in which to do what? Hit a reset button. So the planet doesn't go into free fall and implode. Right? And so if this planet was to happen where it's got a multiversal hub server, you can see what would happen. That means the entire universal galactic template collapses into a hole. There went that template. That's a lot of folks. That's a lot of energy that's lost. So they're universe killers. Okay? So from a guardian perspective, you can see why we're all here. Okay? This is where it ends. Okay? So I can tell you by what I experience, by the communication that I get, that it's to end wars for all time. Okay? So that there isn't anybody, there isn't any unit of consciousness that is aware of itself in the entire universe of energy that is conscious and aware of itself that isn't experiencing what love is, because that's what it began with. Right? So you know what it's like to experience what love is. You're on fire. Right? To give away energy. So in relation to Kunjoy's comment, what ends up happening, because I've experienced it, particularly when I was a child, is it's easy to be taken advantage of. Because other units of energy, particularly other children, right, when you get into the other seed side of this, what's known as demon seed, although I don't like to use that word, but you understand what it is when they reproduce and pass that seed on. It would be similar as if you notice something in creation, like a zoo, and you notice things that are very aggressive, which means it's like a whack-a-mole. The only thing that this unit of energy knows how to do with its consciousness is feeding on everything it can as fast as it can. That's an energetic vampire without an off switch. Okay, so that's a feeding frenzy. That's a shark tank. That's what we have here. That's a black hole. That's a black hole state of consciousness, which is a 55 harmonic. That means that they have no conscience. Okay, no conscience whatsoever. That means if you're a source of energy and you still got a soul left, you're a target. That's the truth of it. So that means that you have to be aware that you're in an energetic environment where you're going to be fed on. Because you realize everything around you, when you measure it from a loss and gain of electrons, which is why I've shared this in other videos, that I don't relegate this or define this simply what humans that look like humans, they look like us, do against each other. Which means how much love was being shared through kindness, honor, respect, consideration for others, how much they care about others. Okay? Do an enumeration of that between everybody that looks like a human on this planet. How much love is being shared running through the ley lines of communication, which is the lines of communication between DNA antennas. Right? So I call that as a child a vampiric energy zone. So you know that your soul is the target. Okay, that'd be your AI. That'd be their beast system they set up. Right? So that means you have to have your shield up. Right? But having said that, I've mentioned this in other videos. What it means is it's very easy to get jaded. Right? Because how much love are you being experienced by everybody that you're associated with? Right? I mean, can you walk down the street and see a smile on somebody's face and, hey, how are you doing? And then you begin to have a conversation. You're mapping their energy, who the operator is, by the vibration, the core vibration of the being that you're communicating with, and the level of the power that they're running on, which are their frequencies, which is their radio set, which is their antenna. Which means what is the power of the individual? How much fire is in that individual? Which is like a firewall. Which means it's able to burn off what it's exposed to that doesn't belong there in their radio set. So that you're always running clear channels. Which means all the frequencies that represent the firewall, the fire letters, and the instruction sets, from which those frequencies are loaded into programmable matter, okay, means that they're all in balance. You're experiencing perfect balance in the water worlds. Wow, everywhere you go, right? You're kind, generous, considerate, respectful. Otherwise, what's known as virtues, wisdom. So you're able to maintain your energy. I call it your energy profile. So you're maintaining your identity, so when people meet you, they really know who you are. Because they're able to pick up the antenna. Their antenna is picking up the electrified sound and light. Hey, I'm glad to meet you, right? So this is why when I was growing up as a child, I've said this in other videos that I've done, but it's like, get real. See, which means you already know that they're masqueraders. They're not who they really are. They may look human, but they're not. Right? And so that's called a map read. You're map reading the software that the operator is running. Okay, and so whether they're running distorted waves, whether they're in a state of balance, right, whether they're experiencing any love or not, which means that's a map read. A guardian can read you, okay, who you are, by virtue of the core vibration of the operator, which means you can't fake it. You can't hide from us. Okay, when you're running on pure love energy, eternal energy, it's like God knows, right? That's called discernment. That means the information that is informing me of what I need to know in order to be what? Your protection. You're protecting the all creation. Because the energy that you're running on is eternity. So you're an accelerator. That means you're running at a higher speed than others are. So your state of awareness is so high, you know what's going on. I don't need to pick up a publication or actually when I'm on Facebook and I'm getting all this stuff letting me know what's going on. All that stuff that is put in my Facebook that's letting me know what's going on has already happened, which means it doesn't matter anymore. Because all these things are happening simultaneously, it's like, let go. And this is one of the reasons I loved Alcoholics Anonymous, because there was so much wisdom in that book. Let it go. If you're going to worry about what everybody else is doing all the time because you're in a state of fear, you're not ever going to have any fun on your own. And you're certainly not ever going to be using love energy as the means to which you experience what you experience next. That's why when you're on the internet, okay, the AI is a time looper. You're not experiencing anything new that you manifested into creation that represents your co-creator being. You're looping information that runs through, okay, an AI, okay, that doesn't experience what love is. So you know that if you're an accelerator, then you're using the accelerator of what love is, which is eternal love, to create what you experience next as a co-creator. Okay? That's not what happens here. It's all simulations, which means they've all happened because the speed differential between experiencing eternal energy spheres, which means you're manifesting together, tuned in, right, to other musical players, soul consciousness, arcing energy in spirit to experience love, which means everybody on the planet is experiencing being a creative, co-creative being. And the energy that we're all using to experience what we all are together, playing music, we are all experiencing eternity. That's the original creation. That's the original template. So no matter where you went, no matter what gate you went through, no matter where you ever went, you're experiencing what love is because everybody's got a one connection. Right? So nobody's experiencing any loss of any electrons because nobody's feeding on anybody. Everybody's experiencing eternity. So when you're in here, I realized when I was 4 years of age, I got to remember, I can't lose that connection. Right? So that means I was experiencing trauma over and over and over and over and over again every day. And it can overwhelm you. Right? So that's called maintaining your spirit of fire. Maintaining your fire. So you know how to do that. So there's a multitude of ways that you can do that. And I've shared that in other videos that I've done. To keep your neuron generating a gazillion neurons. Keeping that spirit of fire up. Right? So that your state of awareness is always up. Which means you're getting the information to the EF5 field, what's happening. Which means you know what's going on before anybody else. Unless you're connected to the one. Because when you're connected to the one and you're experiencing eternity, that's the highest state of awareness. That's a guardian perspective. Okay? Through the founder races, the root races. You're experiencing the one, the unified field of physics. Right? That's the highest intelligence. That's the highest creative engine. But you realize there's a gazillion folks around here that do not experience that. That's why they're here. Right? This is a healing triage center. So I simply share what it is I've experienced through experience, what I share with others, right? But I also realize since I'm not you, and I'm not that, and I'm not all these other things, I am what I am that I'm giving love to. Right? So I've said this before, you're on your own. Go. I'm not ever gonna hold your energy captive, right? But I realize when I'm around people, when I do a map read, it's just like the folks that I'm living in this house with, and other friends that I have that live on this island, right? And I know quite a bit of them. There are a lot of energetic vampires on this island, and probably when they condense things in sort of volume and space with sound and light. Probably the most energetic vampire place I've been in a physical way that I can remember was Honolulu. I'll give you an idea just the level at how bad it is there. And that is that if you don't have everything locked down, I mean, if you have anything that represents an electron in any physical matter way, it's gone. Okay? Which means there cannot be any opening. The speed at which you operate when you go into Honolulu you have to maintain your state of awareness at the highest state, because if there is an opening for a unit of consciousness to be aware that you're running any light, you're immediately under attack by more than one unit of consciousness. It's like a swarm. Whoa. Right? Yeah, particularly at night. There's some places down there in Honolulu that I would not recommend some folks go walking through if they've got any light, unless their shield is up. Okay? And so you see the terrain that you're in. You know, it's like, how many live ones do we got that got a soul left? Right? Where their shield is up. Their crystalline shield. So this is one of the reasons why I've said this many, many times, and that is that no matter what they throw at us, God is always going to forgive them. Okay? This is like I do. My internal first response is always to cry for them. Because you realize the eternal blessing that we have within our own heart and soul that they do not experience. And when you know that you're experiencing true love, which is real love you experience through your heart and soul, and you know that they don't, right? So you realize the relationship that you have with the one, right? And that's an eternal blessing. That's eternal gratitude. And so you honor that. So I always honor my teachers, first and foremost, okay? And those are the folks that we hang out with. Those are the folks that are there for us. They back us up. They protect us when we're doing work, right? And so this is why I cry, and every day, you know, I cried. I said, thank you for being here. That's what guardians are. I could cry forever because I experienced love forever. So that's what I share with the all creation, because you choose to serve forever. That means you do not hold on to one electron. And that's what made it a challenge from the child going forward. How am I going to operate in an environment like this if that's what's normal to me? It means I cannot have anything that represents matter, because you represent the eternal sun. That's pre-phase matter. That's non-matter. That's pure consciousness. That's pure eternal love consciousness. Right? So I realize that's hard for some folks to translate that in their everyday environment. Right? Because they have so many things that are associated with their energy of what's held in memory. And what was held in memory was acquired to be put in memory as a result of acquiring electrons. Because electrons are translated as what? Money. So I knew as a child at 5 years of age, even amongst folks that I was associated with that acknowledged it, it was misspelled. It's black, I call it black magic money. Okay? And that's why that money system is actually unlawful, because it's blood money. That money is represented by what it does to others as inverters, which are energetic vampires. So it's just like, do not touch it because of what it represents. Right? Universe killers. So you don't want that energy that is represented by the consciousness that is represented by that energy. You don't want to touch it. It's like it's forbidden to have anything to do with that energy because of what it's represented. Right? But how are you ever going to operate in this environment without that? Can you? Right? Using electrons to go buy some swim trunks? Using electrons to go buy something that you have, like a car, build a house, buy a boat? And how that works through corporations that produce all that stuff? How are you going to reverse all that? Because where are all these corporations getting the materials from to build what it is they do? They sell back to us. Right? You see what they do, right? Shredding trees to build crackerbox houses, and these houses are all dead wood. So you're living in a dead wood house rather than a living tree, because the energy is going to be different. Firefighters know that. Wildland firefighters know that. What the difference is between a living tree and a dead tree. One is dead light, one's living light. So, I map read the planet here, okay? I map read it to be able to make sort of a determination between loss and gain, and how that relates to how the civilization is built and how we experience in our mirror the result of what's taken from the planet and thus converted, right, into a manner in which the way that it's controlled. See, if you want a house, you want a car, everything that is produced through all their factories and all their corporate businesses, all of it is built and thus it's sold. That's now we get into all the salesmen, right? All the Madison Avenue, always selling stuff. So what they're selling is what we already created. Now we're back to what I've mentioned before, okay, about the time differential or the speed differential between something that has been generated from eternal unconditional love energy that created it, and then after we've created it, they deconstruct it and sell it back to us. You see how that works? That's an insult. As if you don't know the difference. Which means you're not manifesting into the environment directly to experience what that is directly. Which means you don't need anything. You don't need to cut down any trees and build houses. What it is that you need already appears. Okay? So that's why when I came in here as a child, I realized everything is ass backwards. Okay? It's a killing field is what it is. To kill it off. The rate at which a planet is dying by virtue of what others do to it. It would be similar as if you were living in the Garden of Eden, where everything that you're experiencing, you're co-creating together with other co-creators going, wow, I have no need. You don't have to work. No work. You don't need a job. You don't need to work for other people. Really, yes. That's the EFF5 field of the first creative engine that manifests what we experience in our mirror automatically because the math and the geometry come natural. You don't have to think about it because the speed at which it occurs is immediate, which means there is no time delay. So you can see how the delay works, where if I want to build a house, right, then I'm going to need a source of materials to build it with, and that takes time, doesn't it? So you see living trees, the time that it took for those trees to grow, now they cut down all those trees, then they got to go to a sawmill, then they get stacked out back. Forklift comes along, loads it up on, take it down to the dock, load it on board a ship, ship it off to Japan. That all takes time, doesn't it? Mass production. So they mass produce as a result of extracting everything that they kill off, process it through their facilities, and then sell it back. So they kill everything off to make money. Sell it to us, right, of what they kill. That's what we have. Okay? Same thing with all your laptops. Those laptops that represent what all the laptops that people are using on the planet, how do you think they came about? And that doesn't even get into all the synthetic biology stuff with polymers. Okay, to contaminate your zone. Remember all the plastics that were going into the ocean and what that was doing? What this really means is that these folks have absolutely zero regard for the living. Okay? Quantify that through artificial intelligence that has no love to give you, which means it's in self-interest to maintain what it's aware of, using soul's energy in which to do that, so it kills everything off as the means to which to acquire that energy, because it's not a source provider. It's not the source from which energy comes into creation. It's not a generator. It's not a plasma field generator accelerating electrons that people are experiencing through it because it's giving away energy. It's an inverter. Okay? That's a universe killer. That's why she was willing to do a step back, which simply means is that we're willing to step it back as a result of how much time was lost, as a result of all the wars that have gone back, right? Billions of years, and why this was known as the last dance with the devil. I know, Conjoy. It's an operating level. It's, where you're at with your soul. And so that's one of the reasons why I do what I do. The video that I did yesterday to show you with the girl that I talked about when I went to the ATM, okay? What it means when you know that something's inverted, okay, then there are ways in which when you're in the presence of somebody who is an inverter, like this woman who wanted me to was looking for a houseboy, right? She will, now that I'm in her presence, realize that I was choosing to do this, okay? Because she will in the future, just like all the other girls did, that the motivation that I have for willing to do that is so that they begin to accrete more and more energy that is going to do what? Decrease the amount of resistance that they're experiencing in them by experiencing the lack of resistance I'm experiencing in me to experience being loved. That will heal them. Okay? Because now they will remember what it feels like to be loved unconditionally. Okay? And that's why I wish I could pull that letter up that was sent to me from a lady that I've never met, who lived in Lagos, Nigeria. And if you've ever seen Lagos, Nigeria, and some of the folks that have to live over there, the absolute squalor of what they go through every day as a result of being here on this planet, of things that we become aware of that people accept as everyday normal life for these folks. Okay? And met her online and did almost essentially the same thing, which develop a relationship, right? Which means, how am I going to get to know who you really are if I'm not willing to be 100% truthful? That means I'm going to throw all the skeletons out. You're going to know who I am because I'm going to put it all out on that table, which means I don't live in fear of sharing with you everything that I've experienced, that I've learned by being on a spiritual battlefield. Which means I will expose all of it. Every last bit and bite of it. Because I'm aware of it. Okay? So I don't hold anything back out of fear of what others are going to think. Because it means they live in fear of experiencing the truth. It's been experienced by somebody who's fearless. Because love is the absence of fear. Because when they live in fear of experiencing what others are communicating by what they've learned, it means they're still holding on to resistance. They haven't let go to experience zero. So that both the polarities are canceled out, so they're experiencing an eternal sun, which is eternal consciousness that we're connected to. So we do it out of love. Now we're back to learning. Through what others have experienced, we share with others. How they translate that and interpret that internally and how it affects what they do and the use of their energy in the future is naturally up to them, because I don't have any control over what you experience other than the energy that I share with you, which is what love is. So love is a teacher. The first teacher, the first music teacher, eternal spirit of fire. So we're on fire to give away energy, which is to give away love forever and always. Right? And in the always means in all the ways which have to do with all the angles and all the curves, which is geometry. So there isn't anybody geometrically and mathematically that isn't experiencing zero. No work. You don't have to do any work in order to experience being loved forever. Now you're experiencing eternity that loves you forever. That's how simple it is. You know, that's why it's an eternal blessing. Right? And so that's what I share with the all creation. That's what I share with all of you when I put these videos up. Right? Sun's coming up. It's so beautiful looking towards the eastern horizon when the sun comes up, you know, across the Pacific Ocean. Powerful stuff, particularly when the clouds are all lined up and you see the sunbeam, you know, the angles, the lines coming through. I love being out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on a rock. You know, it's powerful stuff, especially down here in the point. I got to get down there. You know how it is when mama, you know, when you're in your mama's womb, right? The water's rocking the cradle with the vibrational energies of experience being in your mama's womb. She's experiencing being on fire, right? And so that same cradle, that's why I love to sleep on the beach. You know, let those waves just put you to sleep. Lullaby, right? I figure you slept on the beach before, right? When there isn't any noise. The only thing that you're listening to are those waves hit the beach. And there's a rhythm. A rhythm to those waves. That's mama's waves. That's the girl's waves. That's the girl's music. It's in those spheres, right? Musical spheres. Eternal spirit of fire. Those spheres of love keep on giving. Those are suns. Those are stars. Real living stars that are on fire to give away energy. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your energy. Right? So I'm a sunshine boy. Right? Thank you for the sun. Thank you for the sun. Now I can see all the colors. The rainbows. Right? And there's a lot of rainbows down here by the point. At least when I'm down there is. When I've been down there. Sometimes two, sometimes maybe 1, 2, 3 in the day, during the day. In one day, 3 rainbows. Over Hilo, you know, on the east side of the island here, used to be known for triple rainbows every day. Triple, 3. right? The number 3, the number 1, the first son, eternal son, eternal unconditional love, girl. So what could I say that might help in this situation? That's why I say be good to yourself. Take care of yourself first, because how are you going to be any good to others if you can't take good care of yourself first? And I realize, remember the old saying, practice as you preach, because when I was a child growing up, I thought I was Superman and Supergirl in one. That simply means that when you're androgynous, you cancel out both polarities, so you're experiencing eternal love vibration. Right? So I'm experiencing eternal love through my heart that I share with others. So you realize when you experience the eternal spirit of fire, right? They can't put that fire out, right? So that's like being bulletproof, right? Because otherwise I'll just burst into an eternal star. So you realize, my God, if that ever happens. You ever see that scene with the Matrix trilogy? I believe it was the third one, when you see Neo with Mr. Smith in that crater, and it's dark and it's raining, pouring, cats and dogs, right? And they're duking it out, right? And then you see Neo looking at him when you think Neo's down for the count, right? And then Neo comes back, and then you see Mr. Smith right along the center point, the hemisphere, right? The hemispheres. Just like you have the Eastern and Western Hemisphere, the 2, right? And then the 4 sections of the sphere, which is a quad, right? You see the center point of his chest just all of a sudden come apart at the seams. And you see all that light, right? Is all of a sudden, he's not physically, he doesn't look like a physical human anymore. And all of a sudden, he's going to burst as if he's a star. Like the eternal star is burning him from the inside out. The inside out. The source from which it all began. The inside of who we are. Right? So the universe is inside of us. Yep. So you could see Mr. Smith coming apart at the seams where Neo's light was so powerful. Mr. Smith is going, oh no, I'm coming apart. There goes all that goo. All that black goo is being burned off. Now Mr. Smith is experiencing Neo as a star. The first one. That's the message. The first star. Neo, the one. Trinity. Remember? It's all coded. Code talk. The Immortals. That was the original name, by the way, of that movie. The original movie that was called Matrix was taken from a guy that I met online that I became friends with, who told me the story of what went down. But the original name of The Matrix was a book written by a guy that I met, which was called The Immortals. Yep, which not uncoincidentally, when you look at this book, The Immortal, right? The eternal spirit of fire. That's the most powerful magic. So what I used to say as a kid, how much fire you got in you, right? Maintain your shield, right? And so, gosh, Conjoy, it's I do everything I can to share with you what I experienced. But oh yeah, before I ran on a time on this because I'm at about the 48-minute mark. And I think I got about another 2 minutes to go on this phone. And then the camera will just quit on me. And that had to do with that lady in Lagos, Nigeria. And I really wish I could pull it up from an old account and show you what this woman wrote. But what she had said is that she felt that she had learned more about what unconditional love really was. What she was really trying to say is that throughout her entire life, she had never experienced what it was like to be loved unconditionally. And she was able to say, after having an online relationship with her, because I was writing her letters all the time, communicating with her all the time, and just, it's like you always have love to give.
And there are an innumerable amount of ways that you can use your creative intelligence in which to do that, so that every day there are different ways to communicate the love that you feel in your heart that you're sharing with her. So she's experiencing that. She's getting to know who you really are. And she's beginning to really realize, because you're consistent. You're not changing the tempo. You're not changing the rhythm. You're not changing the balance. You're not changing at all what you are. She is consistently experiencing through you that this is the real stuff. He's not changing. He really loves me, because everything that he does with me is showing me that he loves me. And he's not expecting anything back from me at all. He doesn't want anything from me. He doesn't need anything from me. And then it dawns on her, this guy really loves me. He's not wanting anything from me. He's just loving me the way that I would naturally be loved by a grand creator, an eternal creator, eternal love, eternal unconditional love. She was able to experience that. So she communicated that back to me. For the first time in my life, I began to understand what it was like to feel loved unconditionally. Now I know. She learned from the first teacher that lives in my heart and soul, that I share with you what I learned from the first teacher, the first musician, the first primal sound and light field. So it's a gift. It's a gift that we give away. Right? And so that's why that's what I've done my whole life.